Today is Friday, May 3rd, and I want to say thank you for everyone for bearing with us again. Of course, Facebook is trying to prevent us from live streaming and keeps coming up with all sorts of craziness to try to keep us off, but we found another way on. You can see I have a guest, Bennett, with us again, Bennett Fischer, from the running for the RTC UFT Retired Teacher Chapter. We're going to get to Bennett in a moment, but I do have a couple of little updates I do want to give you. So I got a message from Gerald today, and I was literally in with our attorneys, with the attorneys today working, and when he gave me a message, I was already excited to have learned myself that because of all the advocacy of all of you and all the other organizations around the state that have been helping us, other municipal retirees like yourself, we got 9 more elected officials in the last 24 hours onto our state legislation. So Gerald was so excited, he messaged me. Right? And Gerald's been helping me keep track of it. So that's a kudos to all of you. And thank you, Gerald, for reaching out and telling me. So this announcement is, news brought to you from Marianne and Gerald. um, but we did get that information this afternoon. So we were really, really excited. That gives us 84 more sponsors onto our bill, which is pretty darn good at this point. So we will be updating you probably sometime next week because we have a few more meetings scheduled regarding our legislation. And then I will let you guys know what possibly will happen in the next phase, because right now these are just sponsors. We have to get these bills out of committee and get them to a hearing, which means you guys are going to have some homework soon. So yes, so thank you guys for all of that. I do appreciate you helping us get your elected officials on that bill. We do have a list that we'll be working from next week, and mind you too, Albany is not in session. That means these 9 people signed on while not around. So that was pretty good. And so then the other update that I do have is that thank you for all of your generosity, because we have raised $42,000 in 1 week. So we are on our way to meeting our $250,000 fundraising goal for this month. We gave you a little bit of a reprieve for a few months. The last fundraiser we did was right before Christmas, and we figured it was time, as after consultation with our bookkeeper, that we really should start to get ready for battle with all these other upcoming cases. We don't have anything new on the court case front. We are still waiting for that decision to come in the First Department Court of Appeals from that oral argument from March. Some documents are coming back and forth with the copay case, and then the very first case, the Campion case, you probably won't hear from anything being calendared until sometime in September, October. And then that looks like we will be going to Albany. So get ready for another road trip. Is taking, I don't know if I want to take 4 buses to Albany this time, but maybe 1 bus to Albany. We'll take another group of retirees to that court hearing in person. So that is our update. Oh, and there is one more. So I touched base just lightly on it. Is the very first case is the Campion case, and that was our first case in 2021. That case, normally, if you remember, we won that case in the Supreme Court. We won in the First Department Court of Appeals. And because it was a unanimous decision, usually the New York State Court of Appeals, the highest court, you have to make leave to appeal to that court. They have to decide whether or not they're going to take your case. Even though all 5 judges found for the retirees, the high court still accepted the appeal. So we were a little disappointed by that, but heck, it's okay. We're still trying to stay positive, but yet we have now, I think it's 7 judges on that panel. And yes, the court accepted to hear it. And when we made inquiry, we were also told that they would be put us on the calendar sometime in September, October. So that's the story there. Yeah, sorry, Kathy, if my feed is freezing, it is because I am on the road. I am not at home on a steady, stable signal. So Gerald says, what if we get 4 judges? Do we win? You just need a majority, my dear. That's all we need is a majority. So if there's any question about that, that case is not over. We still have 3 active court cases going, and legislation. So that's what we have. Deborah Scott says we must stay prayed up and calm. Thank you for all you do. Well, you're welcome. Okay, so Bennett Fischer. Bennett is running as a retired teacher from the UFT to be the leader of the Retired Teacher Chapter, RTC for short, so UFT RTC, right? And he's looking to replace Tom Murphy. And we would like to give him this opportunity to introduce some of his talking points. What would the RTC look like, the chapter look like, if you were the new leader? So I'd like to give Bennett the floor to be able to talk a little bit about his vision, because those ballots are being mailed out on the 10th, right?
That's right.
And so we will start to do a few of these because we want to show you how to vote. We're going to show you what the ballot looks like in the upcoming video, but we want to take a little time so that you can get to know him, understand what his position is, why is he doing this, and hear from him personally. And then we'll bring some of the others back as we get a little bit closer, but those ballots are going out May 10th, right? And we want to make sure that you guys have all the information that you need to make sure that you vote appropriately. So Bennett, take it away.
Well, thanks a lot, Mariana. And it's really great news hearing about the legislative successes that you're having. And hopefully that will lead to a legislative success in the upcoming legislative session. Really rooting for that. And thanks for having me back, and hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm Bennett Fischer. I'm running for chapter leader of the Retired Teachers Chapter of the UFT at the head of the Retiree Advocate slate. And one of the things that I hear a lot from people, well, one thing I wanted to answer is, so what will the RTC look like with retiree advocate leadership? Because people have all kinds of crazy ideas about that. So I kind of want to tell you that in many ways, the chapter will look much the same as it does now. And we're still going to operate under the established chapter structure, with chapter officers, with an executive board, and with 300 delegates to the UFT Delegate Assembly. And we're going to encourage members to participate in nonpartisan committees to strengthen and promote our chapter and to expand the benefits and services that we receive now, and, to research topical issues that, come up that might affect us. And nothing will be torn down. The beloved institutions that we have built in our union, that we all helped build in our union, will remain intact and hopefully be improved, right? Things like the Cy Beagle Learning Program, which so many of our retirees love, where you can take macrame and quilling classes, and the Member Assistance Program, and the UFT Welfare Fund, and SHIP, and the Retiree Legal Plan, and the brand new Professional Support Program. All of those things aren't going anywhere. They're cherished institutions, and they will be protected by Retiree Advocate. And Retiree Advocate will also continue the tradition of providing information to our members about important things like pensions and health benefits and union campaigns. And we're still going to canvass and phone bank for our UFT endorsed candidates, and we will still have presentations and guest speakers at RTC meetings, and we'll staff phones to answer questions from everybody who calls in, and we'll still arrange retiree luncheons and social events. And if I have anything to say about it, we're going to have much better food at RTC meetings. So,
So I
there's
have a question.
yeah. So yeah, no more, we'll try to get fresh bagels, not the stale ones, and maybe some other stuff, maybe some sandwiches. But there's going to be differences too. Okay. So here's the thing. Our slate, the Retiree Advocate slate, is filled with people with tons of experience, right? Not only as UFT activists, but also, and I really want to stress this, as career-long educators and support professionals. Way too many of our Unity colleagues who are in charge of the chapter now, long ago accepted patronage jobs in the union's offices, right, where they were taken away from classrooms, away from the hubbub of children, away from their children, away from those children's parents, away from their communities, right, away from the crazy school administrators whom we all dealt with our entire careers, right? That's a big plus for us. That's a big plus for Retiree Advocate, because we never lost our way. We stayed the course.
Right.
We were in buildings with crazy administrators. We know what an effective UFT chapter is supposed to look like. We know what a bad chapter leader looks like, one who's in the pocket of the administration. And we know what an effective chapter leader looks like and what an effective chapter leader is supposed to do.
Right.
And our highest obligation, any chapter leader's highest obligation, should be to the chapter members, okay? Not to Medicare Advantage companies, not to New York City mayors, not to some bureaucracies that the union is running, like, not even to a union president. So things will be different. We're going to bring democracy to our chapter, and we'll have regular order in our RTC meetings, right? We're going to run them according to Robert's Rules of Order, with question periods, motion periods, and resolution periods. We're going to have real debate and real voting on real issues. And no longer will our RTC meetings be 2-hour-long infomercials for insurance companies, right? Or parades, yeah, or parades of laudatory epithets for union officials. Mariana, I love a good PowerPoint. You know what I'm saying? But but I'm not going to fill our meetings with those, with a bunch of fluff just to avoid debate on important issues, because the voice of our members should take precedence. We will not only take questions, but we'll also take comments and statements from an open mic, much as we see in the public meetings that are held around our city right now. And most importantly, we're going to have full chapter votes on issues of vital importance to RTC members, such as health benefit changes. I think that the current leadership tends to patronize us, and that's going to end. Tom Murphy, who's our current chapter leader, for those of you who aren't UFT members, Tom Murphy doesn't even trust us to hold a microphone in our own hands at meetings, right? Like, he won't let you touch them. Like, people, he's afraid that he's going to get some criticism if somebody has a microphone in their own hands. And
that's crazy. You mean they come up to you and hold the microphone for you?
Yeah. And if you go to, and if you kind of like reach out, they didn't used to do it. They began doing that since they began getting criticism over healthcare. But now one way they try to they just don't trust us. I mean, it's pathetic. They just don't they don't trust us, so they don't let us hold the microphone, so they can just take it away from us if they've heard enough um, from
Wow.
us. And yeah, and you know, he thinks that he doesn't want to hear it. He thinks that getting angry with him or retirees getting angry with Michael Mulgrew because they won't stand up for the health benefits we earned. He thinks that's uncivil. And I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, I value civility, but that's just not my take on it, right? Civility isn't just politeness. I think there's
Well,
no greater, yeah. I mean, what
yeah,
greater
they're
incivility?
attacking you on incivility, that they are the more civil union people to be running, that you are not civil. And I don't like that attack, to be quite honest with you, because I think you are the more civil candidates. You're not looking to dismantle healthcare. You're looking to protect and preserve it. And they're also claiming you're incivil because you are aligning or working with, or I don't know, working with, speaking to, what do we get called?
Oh, yeah. Well, they try to paint, they try to paint, they try to paint us as being sort of like the enemy within the union and that we're
Yes,
working with outside
agitators.
forces who would destroy the union. Of course, they never name them, right? They never name those outside forces.
Right.
And it's just, it's just like a topsy-turvy world because I mean, who are like we're retirees. We want to keep our health care. We want to keep the benefits that we earned. And we're working, who are we working with? We're working with other retirees from municipal unions. We're actually doing like the work of union. And who is Michael Mulgrew and Unity working with? They're working with forces from outside the union. They're working
Yes.
with the city's Office of Labor Relations to take away our health care. They're working with corporate, Medicare Advantage corporate giant Aetna to take
Right.
away, you know,
Privatizing healthcare,
right.
removing an insurance company that is nonprofit and union for a for-profit non-union insurance company. This is a gaslighting situation to me, in that they are projecting everything that they truly are accusing you of, but really they are. They are the ones, in my opinion, that are acting in a non-union, union-like way. That to me, that's just horrible that they're doing that. We have a question, if you would.
Sure.
It's Janet Coburn is asking, how will the agenda be drafted, and how would an RTC member be able to get an item on the agenda?
Okay, that's an interesting question. So, for a large part, what they do right now it's the exec board that makes the agenda. And there are supposed to be motion periods in our meetings where people can add items to the agenda or, or what I think what we will have is not only the exec board, discussing and making an agenda, but we'll invite agenda items to be submitted to us, and prior to every, RTC meeting, because our meetings are going to be real. That's basically it. We're going to have presentations, we're going to have all that stuff. We're still going to get the information to you, but it's not going to take up, an hour and 45 minutes of a 2-hour meeting. We'll have our
Right.
presentations. Mulgrew can speak for 10 minutes. We can have a little presentation on, health benefits or on quilling for a couple of minutes, and then we'll get into whatever business is at hand, and hopefully those agenda items will be submitted by people um, from just rank and file members of our chapter. I hope so.
I actually thought it was an insult to intelligence to do an art project, pro forma in your meeting, rather than address the issues that meant the most to retirees. And that to me tells me that the people that are in office are out of touch with the needs and the wants of the retirees themselves.
Right. But so I was just, so for everyone there here, like I was discussing with like Marianne, I was like telling her that, like when I first began like thinking about like, my God, like what is happening in these meetings? It was like a couple of years ago. It was like the December meeting in 2022. And it was like right before, it was like when it was when the right before the city council hearing was coming up, right? And a couple of big court like hearings it had, and people were finally beginning to like really catch on to what was going on, right? People in the chapter, because we'd been talking about it for like a year and a half before, for a year before then, but these things take traction. It takes time to get traction. And people like were really concerned and really wanted to talk about it. And they knew that this city council thing was coming up, and they realized that Mulgrew was, trying to take the laws that protected the city's obligation to protect our health benefits. They knew they were trying to amend that and take that power
Right.
into their own hands. So people wanted to talk about that. So we went to the December meeting, and it like turned out like that there was like no agenda. The whole thing was supposed to be like a presentation about, it was supposed to be like sort of like a holiday pageant and a presentation about quilling. And I was like, really? Like, oh my God, like what's quilling? And I learned all about quilling that day. And I love quilling. And I'll tell you, so quilling apparently it's a craft of bending and rolling paper to make decorative objects. So we learned all about that. And then there was a presentation also about a retired UFT member who had a wonderful collection of Department of Education ephemera and memorabilia like in his house, and that was like kind of cool. And then it went on and on and on with like a presentation from this guy, a presentation from that guy, until finally someone, like not me, like not just like Joe Blow, these people, everyone wanted to talk about healthcare, and finally people began yelling out, like, let's talk about healthcare. Let's talk about healthcare. And and the whole meeting just sort of, and people began taking the microphone, and people began asking, like, what's going on with our healthcare? What are you trying to do with our healthcare? What's going on here? And it turned into like, a big uh, you know, a big mishigas of people saying, demanding to have a real meeting and really talk about the issues that were of concern to them. So it was like then that I sort of began thinking, well, if I was running these meetings, like how would I do it? And so yeah. And by the way, I love quilling. It's really great. But we don't
Well,
need quilling presentations at RTC meetings.
let me
We don't.
show people what quilling looks like in case they want to know what it looks like, if I could get that to load. Um, let's see if it, there
Mhm,
you go.
mhm.
So is just like Bennett said, just taking paper and bending and curling them and then gluing them down. I know I did this when I was in, I think, elementary school, junior high school, in art class. I just think it's kind of funny um, that they would talk about it that they would talk about that at a retiree chapter meeting where there's so many more important things. But I have a few more questions for you. Janet also asks, how will you implement transparency? For example, where can we find the UFT Constitution and the bylaws?
Well, well, I have them on my computer, and I can send them to Mariana, and she can send them out. There is, interestingly enough, if that's an interesting question. That's an interesting point that you make, though, because so the UFT does have a constitution, and you can Google it and you can find it. But I will send it to Mariana. But they're supposed to have bylaws that are supposed to be on record with the Department of Labor, but they don't. This is an issue that's come up repeatedly throughout the years, actually, because they're supposed to have bylaws about how to run elections and things like that. And they don't. They don't have that. They make it up as they go along. They do whatever they want.
So you can send those to us. We can email them out in our next email update if you'd like. I have more questions for you. Judy Schneider says, Bennett, I would like to reach out to you. How do I do that? So how can people contact you if they want to?
So they can. I'm going to give you. They can. You can call. You can email me. I'll give you like our official email address, right?
That's
So you
fine.
can. Yeah. So you can email me at Bennett@retireeadvocate.org.
Okay, so BENNETT at
Mhm.
retiree advocate. I hope
Dot
if I
org.
spelled it right. Advocate.org. Okay, and I saw a few more questions, so let's see. That was one. Yes, Eileen Marley says they are working with the enemy. Celso Garcia, this reminds me of the rubber rooms and saying that they did not know it was being abused. Deborah Scott says, you guys are not the problem. The buffoons doesn't want the truth told. You, Mary Ann, and everyone else like Bennett are the true leaders. Well, thank you, Deborah. Um, Celso Garcia, does Mulgrew have to approve your agenda?
No, not that I listen. Well, not if I have anything to say about it. I mean, the chapter runs those meetings, right? And as a matter of fact, Mulgrew even said that. He said that at the last meeting. He was like, "Well, it's your meeting. You can do whatever you want." But that's actually true. It is, right? Because because the chapter leader is an elected position, right? It's not a hired job, right? It's not um, when it Tom Murphy actually does work for Mulgrew in other capacities, so he kind of does want to hold on to those paychecks that he gets from Mulgrew, but he doesn't get a paycheck for being the chapter leader. He gets paychecks for other things. When I'm the chapter leader, I'm not going to get a paycheck from Mulgrew. I'm just gonna be the chapter leader, and we're gonna run the meetings because I was the person who was elected to run the meetings, and that's the way it's gonna go.
Yep, I understand. So for a few of you that keep putting in the message that there's issues with the audio, you can go back and listen to this later, and we are recording it where we hear everything fine. We hear and see no issues, Bennett and I. But if you are having a problem, don't stress out. You can turn on the closed captioning, try to follow along on the words, but you can replay this. And yes, I will be uploading this to YouTube for later, so don't worry. And some are saying that either their Kindle or their computer worked better than their iPad. But yes, tell you, I am on the road, so this might be an issue with my Wi-Fi. Janice White says, Bennett, your rosy cheeks and beard look like Santa. When you win, I don't know what she's saying after that. Give us great gifts, she said.
Ho ho ho.
All right, you probably made Janice's day. Um, let's say David Schatz, donate as we litigate for our earned and promised benefits. Yes to the state Supreme Court Justice Lyle Frank's sage rulings. Mulgrew is a menace to hope and life. um, Kathy O'Neill says, because they see us as old nobodies rocking in our rocking chairs. That's why talking about quilling these idiots. um
Yeah, they're condescending.
Yeah, I know it is that frustrating. Um, so Ellen, you're asking about Robert Benkowski. He is still looking for a kidney, to my understanding, and and he could definitely use your prayers. And if anyone is willing to donate a kidney, Bob was looking for a kidney. But I will have an update from Bob as well. I'll see if he's well enough. We had asked him to come on with us, but he wasn't well enough the last time. I'll ask him to come back and talk to you about kidney donation. Can we patent a game, pin the tail on the lying mulgrew? Ellen says, I'm concerned that our RTC members may vote incorrectly, which will invalidate their ballot. How can we emphasize that only one X is needed?
Well, we're going to make some instructional videos about that, and I've already like made up some, some phony ballot-like documents. So when you get your ballot, you're going to have something like this, and you're going to check that box right there, and then you're going to put it in your, and then you're going to put that in your secret ballot envelope, and then you're going to put that in your return envelope to the AAA. But we'll make an actual, video about that, to show you. Yeah,
Yes.
it's a concern. We got to get that word out there. It's definitely a concern, because you have to mark that box. If you mark that box and you mark other stuff and send it all in, that's also an invalidation. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff,
Yeah, we'll do a video on that. Don't worry. Ellen, you make a very good point. And Bennett and his team had already talked with us about that, and we suggested definitely doing a video on how to handle those ballots when they come in. So stay tuned, because that will be next. Bennett and I actually discussed that today. Tina says, I look forward to voting for you, Bennett. Janice asks, is this a paid position?
It's not a paid, yeah, it's not a paid position, although, we generally speaking, and I hope they honor this, is that we should be paid for the hours that we work doing the business of the chapter. Now, the going rate of pay for that at the UFT is $45 an hour. Okay, so hopefully, whether it's me or, somebody else from the chapter, if somebody else is taking phone calls, right? Or, we're having we meet in the UFT offices, to have a meeting, or, discuss stuff, or basically, do the work of the chapter. Yeah, hopefully they should be, and hopefully they will be providing us with office space to do that. And we'll be paying everybody who does do that, $45 an hour, right? Because, we're unionized. We don't work for free, right? So yeah, no set salary, but we should, if they don't try to mess with us, we should be paid for the work that we do for the chapter.
And that would be interesting if they didn't honor that, because then that's truly telling as anti-union that they would want you to work for free when they had paid someone previously to do the same type of work, right?
Well, we'll find out. What sometimes
Yeah.
happens is that if somebody's elected a chapter leader for a functional chapter that's not from Unity and they don't like, they'll sort of let that person come in and, have some office hours and do some things, but they won't let them they won't let them bring their own people. Then they'll say, well, we're just going to keep our old Unity people on, to help you. We're going to pay them. They're going to say, we don't just fire people. But of course, I know that that's not true, because I actually worked part-time in the union for 5 years after I retired, until I wrote a letter to Mulgrew criticizing a policy of his, and he fired me. So, we know that that's not true.
I have another question. When are the ballots being mailed out, and when do they have to be returned? Dates.
They are being mailed out a week from today, on Friday, May 10th. So you should begin receiving them, I guess, as early as Monday, May 13th. And they have to be received at the AAA, the American Arbitration Association, by their deadline is by 8 a.m. June 14th, but I don't know any mail carriers that deliver mail before 8 a.m. So let's say June 13th, the day before. So yeah, how long does mail take now, depending on where you are in the country, to get back to New York? It could take as much as 7 days. So try to really get those ballots back in the mailbox by June 3rd or 4th or something.
Yeah, I would give the mail at least at a minimum a week. I mean, if you already know
Yeah.
the right way to vote, what your vote is, just vote and get it right back in the mailbox, because the post office, we've been having trouble with the post office, even with our donations. We are noting that when the bookkeeper gets our mail, he stamps them so we know when they were received, and they're coming in sometimes 2 to 3 to 4 weeks to us after they've been mailed. So we know from the postmark when they were received at the post office to be mailed, but then they're not getting to us sometimes between 2 and 4 weeks later. And in some cases, we're getting a lot more damaged mail. We just had an issue where we had to make a complaint with the Postmaster General because some of the mail is coming in, it's just destroyed, which I've never seen like this before. Celso says Adam's numbers are on the floor. When will they stop supporting him? Can you endorse your own candidates?
We can, as a chapter, so as a retired teachers chapter, it's the union that makes endorsements. So those endorsements all have to come. Those endorsements are generally made by the union's executive board, that they then bring them to a delegate assembly, and they have votes on those candidates, whether they're going to endorse them or not. And
Mhm.
actually, to tell you the truth, like, although we wouldn't be in a position of telling them who to endorse and who not to endorse, but with our 300 candidates in the delegate assembly, it's exactly that kind of issue that we would have a big influence on. If there was somebody who they were endorsing and we had 300 people saying no, there's a really good chance that endorsement would not be ratified.
Karen asks, how are you able to reach out to retirees who are not in our organization?
Well, we're trying a lot of different avenues. So we are sending, we have allies that are in service, right? We have various caucuses. There's the More Caucus and the New Action Caucus, who have a lot of members throughout the working educator community, and they are sending out emails like for us, even though those are working people, they're not retired, but asking them to get in touch and alert retirees that they know in their lives, because so many teachers have family members and have who are recently retired, or they have friends who just recently retired in the last year or two, who we think would be very, very eager to vote for us, if once they're made aware of what's going on. So we're doing that, and we have the
You have
mailing
your
list.
own social medias as well, and you're
Right,
doing the mailing with the ballot.
exactly. We have our own social media. We have um, listen, this is our disadvantages, is that we don't have the membership mailing list. This is what the union controls,
Right.
and they don't let anybody get it. Now, the Unity Caucus, who we're running against, is entrenched in power. They have an awful lot of money, and they did do a direct mail campaign to union members. They didn't get the mailing list, but you are allowed, right? You are allowed to print campaign material, put it in an envelope, and if you give those envelopes to the UFT, they will mail it out for you for a price. And the price that they charge was 64 cents per letter. So, we don't have so Unity, we know because I got one of the letters and everyone's sort of getting them, sent out members to, it looks like all 70,000 retirees. So that's a cost of $70,000 that they spent. That's how scared they are of us, although they needn't be scared because we're going to make the chapter better. But that is, so they have those resources. They want to spend them that way. That's fine. I wish we had them, but we don't. So the one thing though that we all have, okay, the one thing that every retiree though is guaranteed to have access to is the ballot. So every caucus, everyone who has caucus status, which is just Retiree Advocate and Unity, is allowed to put a piece of campaign literature, to eight and a half by 11-inch piece of paper, two-sided piece of campaign literature in that ballot. So when you get that ballot, you're gonna see a piece of campaign literature from Unity, and you're gonna see our piece of campaign literature. Now that I would prefer that when people saw our literature, that was not the first time they heard of us. I would prefer that they had heard of us before then. But there is some equity in that we do get there. We each have that equal campaign literature in the ballot, and ours is really good. I think it's going to convince people to really vote for us because it happens all, it happens all the time. I meet people at meetings all the time who don't even know the issue, and the second we're able to explain the issues to them, they're like, yeah, I'm with you. Thank
Yep.
you. Yeah.
So Steven says, you've got my vote too. Thanks for running. We need to get rid of Tom Murphy. The current RTC meetings are insufferable. Then William says, will you be able to get a count of the ballots returned on a daily basis? Do you get a count anyway?
So, not that I know of. I mean, not that I know of, but I'll tell you something interesting. And so in some of the past elections, you are able to call up the American Arbitration Association and ask them if they received your ballot, because they do have a record of that. I mean, so like if I called as Joe Blow, no, they wouldn't tell me, oh yes, we've received 12,000 ballots. I don't know. We'll try it. Actually, good point. Maybe we should try it. And we'll try asking them and see if we can, find out how many ballots are incoming. But as far as, so we'll try that. I don't know. But as far as I know, they won't give it to us, but we'll try that. Sure, why not?
Oh my gosh, I know, crazy. It's Janice says, I voted all advocate in the last election, but specifically picked more women because I believe we need them. I did not put an X in advocate box. Was this counted?
So that's what we're trying to discourage you from doing, and to just vote the slate, even if there are people in the other caucus who you want to vote for individually. Those votes just they just count the slate votes first. Eventually your votes will be tallied, but if there wasn't a tie in the slate votes, none of that really matters. If you really want to put Retiree Advocate over the top, just vote, really you have to just vote for the whole slate. Listen, Unity depends on that people doing that for them. And that's why they win elections so handily. And we need people to do that for us.
Yes. That would be great. Let's see. So what else would you want to add about your upcoming election? Is
Well,
there
I just
anything you want to say?
Me, what I want to say about it? Well, I want to say that I'm really excited about it. Number one, I think that we have a real chance of winning. And I think that we really, need to win. I think it's really important that we win. And I would just encourage everybody here to get the word out to any retirees, any UFT retirees that even if you don't like them very much, right? Even if they were that annoying person who you met while you were like walking dogs and you didn't like them so much. Like, just, tell them anyway, tell them anyway, because, that's what we have. It's much more likely, the way I look at it is that it's much more like, as I said, everyone's going to get that piece of information in the mail with the ballot.
Right.
But it's much more likely that they'll be receptive to that if they have just heard that name first, if they had just heard Retiree Advocate, if they said, "Oh yeah, I've heard about them. There's some, I can trust this piece of literature. I'm going to vote for them." So I think that's what we need. We need that to be not the first contact they hear of, but the second or third or fourth or 10th.
Yep. That's fantastic. Well, I mean, and it's going to be a pretty big change. I think people will be happy about doing this, about having new leadership and actually having a leadership that would listen to them. Um, and we're actually quite proud about that. So I want to thank you again for being with us tonight and everything that your team has been doing to try to get the word out as well. We truly do appreciate um, everything that you guys are doing to try to make sure that the retirees in the retired teacher chapter do, have their voice heard and that someone is looking out for them because they're right now that's not happening. The Unity chapter caucus has been sharing information that's not truthful and misleading a lot of people. So we want to make sure that someone is looking out for them in the right capacity,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. We just
So,
want to do the right thing. We want to have a real union chapter.
which is
Yeah,
what this is supposed to be about, a
yeah.
retiree organization protecting, retirees, which would be absolutely fantastic to have. Um, so I'm going to end this here. I want to schedule you to come back to do with your team to do the video on your ballot.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Thank you. And thank you for having me here tonight as well. And once again, I know I said it earlier, but it's really great to hear about the news about more legislators signing on to the legislation that you're working so hard on to get passed in Albany. That's really
Oh
great.
my gosh. I know. We're excited about that. I mean, it truly does show the work that we've put into this, since we've started this on both on the city level and on the state level, and everything seems to be really going well. So we truly are excited about that. The legislation, when I walked in today into that meeting and we found out that they were finally going to start to move our legislation, I couldn't have, I mean, it was just a really great day to get that information from them and be told that they were going to um we got 9 more people on it just like in the last 24 hours, which was super exciting. So we know that it's really been a lot of work, but it's been pretty fantastic that we've got the support that we have and that it's growing. I mean, and that for them to not even be in session and this happening is even, more exciting.
That's really
So
great.
I'm pretty happy about that. But anyway, on that, I want to thank you and your team for taking the time out to support what your retirees are looking for, what's important to them. and listening for that. And then I'll see you on the next video to talk about how a retired UFT member can vote and the proper way to do that.
That's great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bennett. You have a great weekend, and we'll see you again. Bye.